Hi, it's Jared from Strong Roots Farm. Today we're going to talk about the new barn. Stay tuned, it's right after this.
I'm Jared McGinnis. Live in Southern Ohio with my awesome wife Jenny. We have 4 sons, Colt, Gideon, Ruger, and Gatlin. This is a story of how we sold our new home in the suburbs, purchased an old, unserviceable farm, and began to transform it into a local food source for us and our local community. We're on a mission of faith, family, and healthy food. Please subscribe and come with us on this journey. We are Strong Roots Farm.
All right, well, it's been a few weeks since I've had a video. It's gotten a lot colder here in Ohio, so we were in the 50s to 60s, and then in 1 week it dropped to 19. If you're from Ohio or from this area in the Midwest, that might not be unusual for you, but it put a kink in my system. I had to get things ready for the winter a little quicker than I had originally planned. So I neglected making this video. So today we're going to talk about this barn, going to show you some things and talk to you about the philosophy of this barn and go over some of those things that I'm learning as I become a new farmer. Right, so the first thing is if you remember months back, if you've watched my videos, I bought this lumber at an auction. So I didn't plan on building this barn. It wasn't in the project list. I went to this auction looking for a tractor actually, and there was this lot of brand new lumber. So treated wood, posts, 2x6s, everything was just in the stack, and it was at the back of this barn. The auctioneer at the beginning of the auction said that the paperwork for the place that was also selling was being transferred at 6 o'clock, and everything had to be removed by that day. This worked to my advantage. He didn't get to this pile of lumber till like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I bought the entire lot of lumber for like $150. Luckily, I had my trailer there with me. Backed it up. I had to load every piece by hand out of the back of this barn onto my trailer, but I got it home. Then I went to an auction a month later or so. It had been raining a lot here in Ohio, and I bought a lot of lumber, side lumber for siding, and sawmill lumber. I bought it for $125. Had no clue what I was going to do with it, but I thought, hey, that'd be neat to cover a barn with it. It's cheap. I'll be able to build something with it, chicken tractors or something, and for 125 bucks, it was just worth it to me. So I actually ended up splitting it with another guy who helped me haul it out of there, and I gave him half of it. So I only had to bring half of the stuff home. And this is what I made out of it. So let's go look at some of the key features of this barn, and I'll talk to you about what happened. So the first thing you might notice is that the barn is an unusual shape. So to give you dimensions, it's about 20 by 50. So with the overhang here that I have here in the front, I've got about a 22 coverage, 22 by 50 open fronted shed. Weird little shape though. So what happened was I bought all this lumber. What I did was I calculated everything I had, the lengths and all that, and I went to work and worked with the engineers, and we were kind of reverse engineered it. I drew the plans of this barn based on the material that I had. So this back wall is only 5 foot out of the ground. The center wall here, the beams, I had 16-foot beams. So it's 13 something out of the ground here. And then the front, I had 12 foot, so we're about 9 foot out of the ground, 8.5 maybe, depending on how low I could get it. So what did I have to buy other than the 2 auction lots? So I had to buy some 16-foot posts for the center. The posts that I got in the lot were not treated, so I didn't want to use those. So I bought these treated posts, 4 of them. They cost me a couple $100. They were like 25 bucks a piece for those posts. I bought some satcrete. I had to buy gravel, and I had to buy the metal roof. But other than that, a few boards here or there, a couple treated boards just for angles. But most of that was in this lot. So barn's a little weird shaped, but let's go through it some more and I'll show you some other things that I did. What I did was I set all my posts, and all my posts are on 10-foot center except for the center post, the center beams. I have 2 posts that are set on 20 foot and 1 that's set on 10 just because of the material that I had. And so I just happened to have in this lot that I bought these 20-foot 2x12s. So I notched the top of the post at the top with a chainsaw. I'm cutting a groove. You probably can't see it, but it's up here in the peak. And I ran these 20-footers up through here, and then I put some angles on them. So I got angles crossways from my rafters, and I also have angles back. My goodness, my finger won't work. Back there. So I got angles from the posts up to that 20-foot rafter. So I started with that, and then I hung all these rafters by hand. I built this entire barn with one person by myself. A guy showed up for one day to help me dig a couple holes, kind of hang out with me and enjoy the farm. And he helped me dig a few holes. And then when I got to the metal roof, I hired a couple two friends to come and help me put some metal on. The wind was blowing about 40 miles an hour and it was sleeting. Other than that, I built this entire barn by myself. My wife had to help me a few times, but you can build a barn like this by yourself, 22 by 50. It took me about 4 weeks working in the evenings and the extra time I had when we weren't doing other stuff on the weekends. So this is how the inside kind of looks. And let's talk about some principles of this barn. So I read a book about 2 years ago by Joel Salatin entitled You Can Farm. It had a lot of different things. It was an interesting book. It was a winter read for me. Went on vacation and I finished it off. One chapter in this book really hit me. It was about how he built barns. So he talked about the cows in his shed that he built don't really care how expensive the barn is. The cows don't grow faster because of the barn. They aren't better off because of the barn, and they don't moo less because of the barn. You know, so the cows don't care as long as they're secure and warm. The barn is doing its function. So he built a barn out of actual trees. So just took trees and cut the posts out of them, used 4-inch to 6-inch rafter trees, used these limbs. It looked kind of a little shaky, but we found that the round posts of those trees were actually more secure than my cut lumber like this. That hit me hard because I grew up on one of the largest farms in our county here. My grandfather was very, very particular about the way we did things. I remember farmers making fun of our place, calling it Tin City, because he had all these nice aluminum barns, and it's just the way I grew up. Everything was clean as we could get it. He was just real particular, and he instilled that in me. So when I built a barn, I had to think a lot about what is efficiency. So I'm doing this efficiency management. I'm doing 5S. I'm doing so. What price will justify me building this barn? If I have to make it better, if I put metal all on the side and I bought all brand new lumber and I made this thing taller, would it really make me more money, or would it just be a nicer looking barn? So as I went through this barn, I had to use that principle. There's a bunch of boards in this barn, especially on the roof, that are recycled. So I took them off skids. I had some skids that had long 2x6s on them, and I pulled the nails and I used them. My grandfather never would have done that. He just didn't like that kind of stuff. He wanted it all perfect. The barn is square. It's structurally sound. Everything's held up good. My trailers, they haven't complained one bit that this barn doesn't have all brand new lumber. So this principle of when you build a barn or when you buy a piece of equipment or when you do something, will it make the money back? Is it for your pride, or is it really going to be efficient for your farm? It's a really hard one for me to get past just because of the way I was raised. But it's something that I'm really thinking about. So overall, this barn, I have just over $3,000 in it, 22 by 50, and a lot of that was in the metal on the roof. So I spent $900 for the metal that was on this roof, and I had to spend a couple $100 on those two guys that helped me put it on. And the rock, I had 60 tons of rock to put in the floor of this 304s. And so that's where some of my price added up. But overall, I've got a $10,000 barn essentially for $3,000. So let's go over some of the mistakes I made, or if you're interested in building a barn, some of the things you might want to think about. First thing you should do if you're planning on pulling a tractor in here is to measure the roll bar. So I have this 5500 John Deere sitting over there, and I put the roll bar up on it, and it measures so many inches high, okay? You should measure that and at least make your rafter runners here a couple inches higher than that. I'm actually 1 inch lower than my roll bar on my tractor. So now every time I pull the tractor in here, I have to lower the roll bar down to get my tractor in this loft. I'm about 7'10", maybe right at 7'11" right here at this point, and I can't get my tractor in here. So that's something you should think about. Other thing is you should think about how can you maximize your material. So you can see here on this overhang, I've got about a 4-foot overhang. Originally, these pieces were meant to be 14-footers. So I was only going to have a 2-foot overhang, but I had a lot of 16-foot 2x6s. So I decided, hey, the material's already there. I got with one of my structural engineer friends and talked to him, and he said, yeah, just put the overhang and we'll put some braces on. So I had to add these angle braces right here, but I maximized my material. I spent a little bit more on metal, but I maximized that material coming out. So the less that you have to cut when you're doing a drawing of a barn, the less that you have to make angles on, those are all good things. So post spacings, all that kind of stuff, you should think about that and maximize your material. The other thing you should do that I'd recommend is go ahead and think about what you're going to use this barn specifically for and design it for that as you're drawing it, or if you're getting a plan from somewhere. So originally I had planned to put this bay here for firewood, okay? I had all this space up here in the rafter, so after the fact, I went in and I just got lucky that things worked out, that I was able to put this loft in. So I'm putting some PVC pipe up there now. I need to put put one sheet of plywood up there. I'm gonna put our garden fabric and stuff like that up there in the loft. But that was kind of an afterthought, and I just got lucky that it worked out. So you gotta kind of think about those things. As I went through this though, this firewood is nice. It's nice to have it in here. I'm gonna build another one of these barns. I looked at my material. I've got a huge trailer load of material still. So right down here by the house, where that big pile of dirt is, I'm gonna build another one of these. Not quite as big, maybe a 12 by 20 or something small, but I'm just gonna put firewood in. It's all it's gonna be. So I'll cut firewood in the spring or summer, and I take it and I put it into here, and then in the winter now I'm having to load this up in the bucket of the tractor, haul it down to the house and make a stack once a week so we can burn firewood. Whereas if I had a little barn right next to my house, I could just put the firewood in there and walk it right in the house and never have to move it, just at one time. So that's kind of that 5S and minimizing movement. So kind of think about that as you're building a barn. How can I minimize movement? How can I minimize turn distance on trailers if you're backing in? Those kind of things. And think about that on the placement of it. Also, you have to think about the grade. How's water going to come? It might take a day. Take a day before you build your barn and trench you in some drainage lines. Trench you in those things early and get those knocked out. Kind of think about where does water flow? How does it flow? Where does the wind come from? If leaves are going to fall, are they going to clog a gutter if you have a gutter? If snow blows in, where's it going to blow in from? All those kind of things you have to think about ahead of time and think about placement. Those are all very important things. Those things, those preemptive thoughts, are more important than the structure itself in the way that you're going to build this structure. If you can build a perfect square. I'm out an 1/8 inch on the corner, which I was pretty impressed with. But you can build a perfect structure barn, but if it's placed in the wrong spot where water runs in it all the time, it's going to be a mess. So you got to think about that. This video helps you. It wasn't very informational. If you want some plans for this or whatever, send me an email. I drew these plans myself, so there's nothing fancy on them. But one thing I really want to stress, if you can learn anything from me on this video, it's that think about the money you're spending on your farm. Will that pay you back? So I know that this barn, as far as equity in my property, is going to raise the value of my farm. But unless I'm planning on selling my farm, I'm really never going to get that value back as far as value on equity. So will this barn, the $3,000 that I spent, make me $3,000 over how many ever years? Okay, so it's going to protect my equipment. That's the biggest thing. That's the biggest reason I built it. I can put hay in it and protect hay. I could run animals in it if I wanted to. So it does have multiple functions. Right now it's just trailers and protecting my equipment and kind of keeping stuff picked up, keeping stuff clean. And overall, I think $3,000, I can pay that back. I can justify that cost over time. If I had to pay $15,000 for somebody to build this barn for me, it would be harder to pay back. So you got to think about those things as you're building. Will this pay me back? This farm is a business. I'm going to run it like a business so that it doesn't run me. Will I be able to pay myself back on it? Or should I do something else temporary? Should I do something else to protect my stuff? Those are the kind of things you need to think about. And it's really hard for me. Just the way I was growing up, it's just one of those things in me that doesn't come naturally, that I have to work on and beat myself up about to make sure I'm building something and not caring so much about everything being perfect as I am. Is it functional? Is it going to do the right thing? Because I really would have loved this barn to be bigger. I really would have loved for it to be taller. I really would have loved to have all new things and gutters and all kinds of stuff on it, sliding doors, but is it really functional for me? Is it going to protect my trailers better? I had to go through that. So I hope these videos help you. Please keep subscribing to us, keep watching our videos. Appreciate the comments, keep commenting, and we'll try to answer those for you. And we always appreciate your support here at Strong Roots Farm. There won't be many videos this winter. I will try to continue to do stuff. I will continue to go over the cover crop. I've got about 4 inches of growth on that, and I'll continue to go over those things throughout the winter. But as we get through the winter, we're going to talk about our new CSA for next year, how we're going to run that. We're going to talk about the cover cropping, how we're planning on doing that with the cattle and how it came out within the perennial. And we're also going to talk about the new greenhouse project. So right now, though, for this winter, my main project is we've just added on to our house. So I'll be spending a lot of time this winter in the actual house, getting that thing done and making the wife happy. So that's an important part for me. So appreciate it. Thanks for watching.